Hi everyone, I'm Megan, one of your group facilitators this week, and today we're going to be looking at our week 3 policy and carbon budgets. So 3 of the readings I'm going to be chatting about today is the UNFCCC 2016, what is the Paris Agreement? The next one is going to be the UNESCO 2023, so this is also COP28, making education the long-term solution to climate crisis. And the last one is CBC News Biodiversity Agreement, or COP15, which was held in Montreal. So the first reading that I'm going to be touching on today is the UNESCO 2023. So what this reading is basically about is how education has been a victim throughout this climate crisis. So UNESCO has decided that education will now have power over this crisis instead of being a lacking component. So they're working on education being a highway for information, and education becoming a sustainable method of developing knowledge in youth and educators today. So what they have done is they've had 39 countries sign a declaration on education and climate change. So what this is it's focusing on adapting our education to climate risks, engaging all different types of learners and educators in mitigating efforts. And it's also securing necessary financial support to build climate resilient education systems. So this is essentially like a testament to the urgency of the need of education on the climate crisis. It's also our responsibility as teachers to ensure ourselves and as well as our coworkers are properly educating themselves on climate crisis and climate change, so then we can properly educate our students, because what UNESCO is saying is education is part of our solution here. The next one I'm going to be talking about is the Paris Agreement. So this is also known as COP21. So this is a legally binding international treaty on climate change. And this was adopted by the 195 parties that came to this conference in Paris in 2015. And it entered into force, into effect of November 4, 2016. So after this conference, the overarching goal that these 195 parties came to conclusion of is we need to limit the increase of the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius. So they want to get it above the pre-industrial levels. And to pursue these efforts to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this agreement calls for all the nations to reach a global peaking of greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. So this is definitely the ultimate objective here, is to find a balance between greenhouse gas emissions that are produced and those removed from the atmosphere. That's also known as the net zero emissions. So what they've also done is they want to make sure that each country must prepare and submit an NDC. So that is a nationally determined contribution. So how are they reaching net zero? Where are they at? Where is it going? And lastly, we have our CBC Biodiversity Agreement. So this was in Montreal. At the end of their 2-week negotiations, they came up with 4 main goals and 23 targets to reach. So the biggest one being 30% of the world's land, water, and marine areas to be conserved and restored, as well as the mobilization of them by 2030. So the 30 by 30, that's what that means. And then they also have a few large ones as well. However, they also made a pledge to reduce subsidies deemed harmful to nature by at least $500 billion by 2030 as well. So while having the developed countries commit to providing the developing countries with at least $20 billion per year by 2025 and $30 billion per year by 2030 to help with their biodiversity. Thanks.